Hello, and we're live. Hi, everybody. I am so excited to talk about this tonight. Seriously, be afraid. Be very afraid. Okay. Hi, Muppets, Spidey Cat, Christy, Black Eagle, Voices in Your Head, Jenny. Thanks everyone for being here. I wanted, as you can see in the title, I'm going to briefly discuss. The whole live stream is not going to be about a particular company that pulled out of social media, but not completely. There's a catch to it. But I'm just going to brush on that for a little bit. And this company basically, and the company is Lush, okay? The cosmetic company out of the United Kingdom. They're a vegetable-based product, organic, supposedly product. And ever since, if you remember when Facebook had the whistleblower, and that's when they pulled out and they said that they would not return to social media until it was safe. So let me briefly, and they shut down. It was on Black Friday in 2021. Okay, and Black Friday in the United States it's not a national holiday, but it's where companies slash their prices. It's like the start of Christmas shopping, and people go crazy. And before the internet, people would wait in lines. They would camp out overnight, in front of these stores until they opened to get like these really great deals. Okay, so again, Lush shut down many of its social media accounts on Black Friday of 2021, citing that the Facebook whistleblowers' revelations about social media harms are being ignored. Okay, and the CEO of Lush, Mark Constantine, said he was happy to lose 13 million in US dollars from the reduced exposure. Okay, so what Lush did was they shut down its Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat accounts globally on Black Friday. Again, citing its concerns about the harms of social media in the wake of the Facebook whistleblower. And they also said, quote, in the same way that evidence against climate change was ignored and belittled for decades, concerns about the serious effects of social media are going largely ignored now, end quote. And they fully expect that losing its pipelines to millions of customers could harm its business since they pulled out. But what's interesting is they didn't pull out of YouTube, which I was very surprised, because basically all these social media platforms are basically the same. I think they're all can be very unsafe, toxic, and the company Lush said that they were talking about self-harm here, not spots on whether someone should dye their hair blonde. And how could they possibly suggest that they're a caring business if we don't look at that and don't care about, the effects social media can have, especially on younger people? And they're not alone. Many major advertisers did boycott Facebook and Instagram in 2020 following George Floyd's death at the hands of police officers, but they returned months later. But Lush said they were committed to staying off social media at that time. So I want to ask, so we're going to get into the algorithms, because I find it really interesting that there's no way that if they're not going, you have to have these social media platforms adjust their algorithms, because that is where their profit is. That is like the brain of these social media platforms. And the algorithms are designed to create addiction from the user. Okay. So that would cost, like with YouTube, that would cost Google probably billions of dollars if they had to create a safe platform. And they would probably lose advertisers because it wouldn't be worth the advertisers' time to pay Google or get paid from YouTube, Google, if it was friendly. It wouldn't attract so many people, okay, because there wouldn't be addiction involved. Hey, Denise, thanks for coming. So there's, and how many of you in here know exactly what the algorithms do? If you do, press 1. If you're not sure, but you think you do, press 2. I originally thought that algorithms were something that we controlled by hitting our likes or our dislikes, but it is the other way around. The algorithms are controlling us and pulling us in directions that we don't want to go. So, for example, when a creator says press the like or dislike button because it doesn't matter, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. What matters is the creator, based on the creator's usage and where they go. I mean, is what the algorithms are looking for. So they're not looking at your likes or dislikes. It's almost like a decoy. And just because you dislike a video, the algorithms pick up, not that you dislike it. I mean, you could be in a watching a video, for example, about white supremacy, right? And you're against it. It's a horrible group and you're against it. But in that video, there might be a group of people trying to stop these people from continuing, with who want to wipe white supremacists off the face, of the earth, like no more, this isn't tolerated. And you might like the video based on that. Say, look at, something's being done about this group. So the fact that you liked it or disliked it tells the algorithms it's a fingerprint where you've been. And it's going to pull you in that direction of it's a print. It's your digital fingerprint. So it's going to pull you into, videos like that, no matter what. So when you hit like or dislike, it's not to the creator's advantage. Not at all. The likes and dislikes is telling social media where you've been, whether you like the video or dislike the video. You're letting them know, hey, I've been here. You are the GPS, right? You are the GPS. And it gets to the point when you keep doing this, no matter where you go on the internet, the algorithms know you better than you know yourself. Hi, Yvette, Clarissa. All right, so this one is a very short video. Let me see if I can pull it up. Social media addiction. This one is, pull this up. This one is a doctor just explaining. He has a question from somebody, and he explains how to deal. And the person is asking, the question that was submitted was how to deal with toxicity of social media. Okay, and it's 7 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna start with this. IVM. Let me know if you can hear it, okay? Hi, Nana.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach podcast. I am Ashton Doctor, your habit coach, and today with us in the hot seat we have Harshita. Harshita says, "Hi, this is Harshita. Currently, I'm pursuing my second year college, and although I'm not a social media freak or addict, I find myself seeking for validation. I often think about what others would think about me after seeing my stories. I evaluate my stories based on the reactions I receive from others. I'm unable to quit social media too because of that fear of missing out. Looking at successful people's posts, I find myself languishing. In addition, I also feel guilty about spending time on social media. It is an endless cycle of uninstalling, installing, uninstalling, uninstalling the app." All right. Now, Harshada, the good news is that you're in the same boat with millions and billions and not trillions, but billions of us, because the whole social media world is built to make you feel like you're missing out something. The whole social media world is made to believe that you have to compare yourself with everyone else, that you must be in that state of constantly bettering the other person, being at least as good as the other person, if not more than the other person. And this is such an evil, evil world that has been created for us. You see, the whole idea of getting better or growth is beautiful. But as soon as we compare our growth, our getting better with somebody else, we completely lose the point. And that is what social media does. You see, it is triggered and created to make you want to see what else is happening. Right now, when you scroll on Instagram, there are only 3, 4 different kinds of things that you see. There are people shouting at you and telling you how you are not living your best life and what you need to be doing. And by doing that, they're making you feel negative about your life. The second is that there are people showing you a fantastic travel holiday, home, cars, and that's making you feel again less than. Then what is the other stuff on social media? People trying to sell you things. So you understand that as soon as you plug into social media, it is nothing but a big marketing machine. In fact, I remember reading this about television years ago. Somebody said, if you think that television was created for your entertainment, you're wrong. Television was created to sell you things. Now, social media, your phone, the little TV in your pocket, is exactly that. It is made to sell you things. Sell you how bad you are. Sell you how you're not worthy. Sell you how you need to do this to take your life to that next level. Now, the fear of missing out, unfortunately, is an ingrained part of our human psyche that these companies have been able to pull out. Now, the problem is that most of our lives have slowly moved to social media. We spend so much of our time in this virtual world that we spend very little time in the real one. You can obviously do things by installing, reinstalling, uninstalling, but that is temporary as a solution. I know so many people who've permanently closed their accounts, deleted their user ID, everything. But the point is that you don't necessarily need to live in that harsh reality. The way that I would do it is, if you're spending too much time on social media, I would first spend and use one of those time tracking apps. The apps automatically shut off your phone after, say, half an hour of scrolling. That's one. But the second is dealing with this fear of missing out. And the way that I do this is whenever I see something that I immediately feel, that little feeling of jealous of, that little feeling of, why can't I do that? I stop. I take a break. I look back and I say, wow, it's fantastic that this person can do it. All right. I change the narrative. I feel good about that person being able to do this. And if there is something that I really want to do, I always say I can't do it yet, but I will soon. And in that way, it doesn't make me burn inside. It makes me believe that everything is possible. Now, when you believe everything is possible, you're not constantly chasing after somebody else's goals, but you're chasing after your own. And I think that is the second or the last part to this conversation. Having a clear picture of what you want your life to be without being influenced by others. There was a time when my life was all about fancy cars, yachts, private jets. Those are the things that I really wanted. Now, when I look at them, I'm like, okay, they're pretty, they're beautiful, but it's not something that I want currently in my life. The things that I want are far different from this. So, as a result, my goals have changed. And when your goals change, you'll start noticing that not everything is bringing out that fear of missing out in you. Finally, when you said that when I put up my stories, I'm constantly seeking validation, wondering what my friends are thinking about me, that's great. Wonder what your friends are thinking about you. but don't change who you are for them. You see, the most attractive thing in a person is their authenticity. The most attractive thing in a person is who they truly are inside. And if you're not showing who you truly are inside, no matter what you put outside, it's never going to be pretty. So,
You understand that? So no matter what you put out there, you know, like if you're not meeting the goals of the algorithms that pull, and you're seeing other people having a good time, and it's making you feel lesser as a person because maybe you're not as wealthy as they are, or maybe you can't take as many vacations, and it automatically sends that signal that you're not good enough. But no matter what you put out there for your life, unless it's spectacular, um, that's what they want you to feel, that your life is just spectacular. So they want you to come back. They want you to watch, 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 watch. Um, and but on the flip side of it, it's making you feel less and less and less as a person. It takes away your authenticity, it takes away your individuality. And that is where, you know, it's not safe for anyone's mental health, especially our youth, where, you know, they are very impressionable, very impressionable. And this is almost done. I think it's got like 2 more
so
minutes.
the way that I would think about it is relook at your stories, see if you're showing your authentic self, and then enjoy whatever people say about you. Because you can never control what people say about you. That's going to be impossible. You have
Yep.
to enjoy what you do and then see where the chips fall. All right. Now, Harshita, I hope this makes sense to you. Get over this feeling of missing out. It is not something that you truly are missing out on, because all of us are on different journeys. All right. So you are enjoying the current journey that you are on. If you're constantly living in the future, you're never enjoying who you are now. If you want to be featured on the next Hot Seat episode.
Okay. So what did you guys think? I mean, the message there, um, basically is, you know, people are going to social media to feel accepted, because what they see, you know, you're always going to see someone else that appears to have a better life from you based on the content that they put out or the pictures they put out. I remember, I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I remember being on Facebook, and everyone would, you know, posting their vacations. You know, they're off on an island, and you know, and um and then another friend, the same thing. And there was one point I felt like, God, my life could be better. Look at these people traveling so much. You know, pictures of their husband and their kids, and they're all smiling. That picture, perfect family. You know, and so it's you know, it does make you think like a little bit less of yourself. I wish I could have what they have. When you truly don't know what they have, they're just putting out there what they want you to see, you know? Yeah, keeping up with the Joneses. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. All right. So this one is a professor. Now this is 7 minutes. He's from Israel. He's going to start talking about the algorithms. Okay. So just listen carefully. And I know algorithms are confusing. And I know Debbie Johnson left, which is fine, it is confusing. It's taken me a long time to actually figure it out. I learned that they weren't good because I used to think they were great because they're going to give us what we want, but they don't. They don't. Um, they give us recommendations, and we say no, we're not interested. But that doesn't stop them from the next time you go on the internet. That same video will come up again and again and again, and you'll get to the point where it'll be like, all right, let me just watch it, so it won't keep showing up on my feed, because it's not going away. And I've done that a couple of times. Hi, thing one. Okay. All right, this is Yuval Harari. He's a lecturer at the Department of History at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And this is a really, I'm just going to play the audio. And this is 5 minutes.
worldview, which you can call data of this new world
Okay.
worldview, which you can call dataism because it invests authority in data. The central tenet is that given enough data, especially biometric data about a person, and given enough computing power, Google or Facebook can create an algorithm that knows you better than you know yourself. Now, how does it work in practice? Let's give an example so it doesn't stay too abstract. Let's say you want to buy a book. I'm in the book business, so it's very close to my heart. How do you choose which books to buy? So, which books to read? So in the Middle Ages, you go to the priest, you go to the rabbi, and they tell you to read the Bible. It's the best book in the world. All the answers are there. You don't need anything else. And then comes humanism and says, yeah, the Bible, there are some nice chapters there, but there are many other good books in the world. Don't let anybody tell you what books to buy. You just go, and the customer is always right and all that. You just go to a bookstore, you wander between the aisles, you take this book, you take that book, you flip, you look inside, you have some gut instinct that, oh, this is an interesting book, take it and read it. You follow your own instinct and feelings. Now you go online to the Amazon virtual bookshop, and the moment you enter, an algorithm pops up. I know you. I've been following you and following millions of people like you, and based on everything I know about your previous likes and dislikes, I recommend that you read this book. You'll find it very interesting. But this is really just the first baby step. The next step, if there are people here who read books on Kindle, then you probably know, you should know, that as you read the book is reading you. For the first time in history, books are reading people rather than vice versa. As you read a book on Kindle, Kindle is following you, and Kindle, which means Amazon, knows which pages you read slow, which pages you read fast, and on which page you stop reading the book. And based on that, Amazon have quite a good idea of what you like or dislike. But it is still very primitive. The next stage, which is technically feasible today, is to connect Kindle to face recognition software, which already exists. And then Kindle knows when you laugh, when you cry, when you're bored, when you're angry. The final step, which probably will be possible in 5-10 years, is to connect Kindle to biometric sensors on or inside your body, which constantly monitor your blood pressure, your heart rate, your sugar level.
Okay, the Apple iWatch is already doing that. The data on this was 5 years ago, so that's already been developed. And in fact, Siri, if you cough, Siri can ask you or remind you to take a sip of water just by coughing.
Your brain activity, and then Kindle, which means Amazon, knows the exact emotional impact of every sentence you read in the book. You read a sentence, what happened to your blood pressure? This is the kind of information that Amazon could have. And, you know, by the time you finish the book, let's say you read Tolstoy's War and Peace. By the time you finish the book, you forgot most of it. But Amazon will never forget anything. By the time you finish War and Peace, Amazon knows exactly who you are, what is your personality type, and how to press your emotional buttons. And based on such information, it can not only recommend books to you, it can do far more spectacular and frightening things, like recommend to you what to study, or whom to date, or whom to vote for on election. In order for authority to shift from you to the Amazon algorithm will not have to be perfect.
So the algorithms, think of the algorithms synonymous with advertising. That's what it is. It's like he said, it's shifting you, it's pulling you in the direction to sell, to purchase, to buy. It's pulling people in the direction even who to vote for. Okay. in the elections. So that's where it becomes dangerous. It can pull you in the direction of conspiracies. Um, so algorithms, they're not they're not safe. They're not safe whatsoever.
It will just have to be better than the average human, which is not so very difficult.
So in other words, the algorithms are trying to recreate you, take away your authenticity. Okay. It's trying to sell you what they want to give you. Okay. And you can say, no, I'm not going to let them do that. I'm not going to because knowing what the algorithms do, I try to keep my head above water. You're not going to do this to me. I know what you're up to. I'm not going to buy that book. I'm not going to, vote for that politician. But they're getting people, users addicted and changing the way we think. Okay. Taking away our authenticity. Okay. Where many people do end up becoming addicted and the algorithms do succeed. And basically, you no longer, I'm going to switch from Democrat to Republican. I thought I'd never do that. But based on what social media has showed me and told me, I feel a different way now. And telling you over and over and over where they convince you.
Because people make terrible mistakes in the most important decisions of their lives. Like you make a decision what to study or whom to marry or whatever, and after 10 years, oh no, this was such a stupid decision. So Amazon will just have to be better than that in order for people to trust it more and more and for authority to shift from the human feelings and choices to these external algorithms that not only understand how we feel, but even understand why we feel the way that we feel.
Okay. Yeah, it is scary, spooky. Be afraid. Be very afraid. It is. It is. So when they talked about facial recognition, how many of us have facial recognition so we don't have to manually put in our password or give us our fingerprint, which I will never even give them that. I do have facial recognition, and tomorrow I'm dismantling it because like he talked about the Kindle book. It's facial recognition. It can pick up when you're angry. It can pick up when you're laughing, when you're sad. It's collecting data. They're getting to know you based on your emotions, your choices. And once they have that, once they have your authentic self, that's where they try to change you in the direction where they want to sell to you. I used to have a Kindle. When they first came out, they were very popular. I downloaded one book to read. I remember I was going back to Hawaii to visit my friends, and I bought it and I downloaded one book. I don't even think I read the whole thing. I still have it in a drawer somewhere. But I'm sure it's probably about 10 years old. I'm sure it's obsolete, or maybe no, it's probably not that old, but okay. So what do you think? So from the time you came in, do you know a little bit more about algorithms? And do you see the correlation where, it's collecting your data based on your facial expressions, based on your likes and dislikes? And again, if you hit a like on a video because, it's a horrible, violent video, but someone came in to intervene and made everything okay, and you click that like, it's still collecting data of, where you visited. It's going to recommend, and you might say, no, no, no. But the more they recommend it, it does give a boost of dopamine. the transition to addiction is very scary. It's very scary, and basically algorithms again, their goal is to re-identify you based on what they want to sell you. Okay, and they've been successful at it, very successful at this. Jenny, yes, way more. Yes. Denise, yes. Good. Clarissa, it's terrifying. Yeah, and more so um, for our younger generation, children. Even I see kids as young as 2, while the mom is shopping in the market just to keep the child occupied. They're holding their mom's cell phone and playing a game. Um, so it starts young. These kids are already getting addicted at a very young age. They don't want the toy, the regular plastic toy or a puzzle, there are puzzles online. So rather than spending money on a puzzle and working on, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, they're just downloading apps that provide that visual for a child. Search for something on Google, and then what you search for pops up everywhere on social media. Right. And I've had conversations talking to another person, and this actually happened to me, and I'm sure you all have had it happen to you as well, that this was a couple of years ago, and I needed to get new tires for my vehicle. It was a quick conversation, winter's coming, I need to get new all-season tires. The minute I went back on the internet, everything tires came up. Everything. So it knew what I needed. So the advertisers start coming in. Tires, go here, come here, sale there. Okay, so also, when Elon Musk took over Twitter recently, General Motors, Pfizer, United Airlines were some of the big advertisers that did leave Twitter since Elon took over. And because they were concerned about Twitter, a platform that's been rising in misinformation, hate speech, just and other distasteful content under his watch. And also Musk had a company-wide layoff. So they cut major portions of the company's content moderation team and its entire ethical AI team, artificial intelligence team. He laid off these departments entirely. Okay. So when these companies pulled out, the General Motors, Pfizer, United Airlines, that's just a few of them, pulled out from Twitter advertising, he replied, Twitter has had a massive drop in revenue due to activist groups pressuring advertisers, even though nothing has changed with content moderation, and we did everything we could to appease the activists. So Elon Musk continues to say, extremely messed up. They're trying to destroy free speech in America. So these were companies that pulled out because they felt that the Twitter platform was not safe. It was misinformation. He got rid of the ethical artificial intelligence team, and he responds, extremely messed up. They're trying to destroy free speech in America. Okay. So the last podcast is about 20 minutes long. Okay. You're going to listen to Dr. Batt, Batt. And after the live stream, I didn't have time because I had just arrived home shortly before I went live. I'm going to put the podcast link in there. Um, and a link to Dr. Bat and his articles. Okay. And he's going to discuss, he's being interviewed. Okay. And this is on social media addiction. He's being interviewed and he's going to discuss the algorithms. He's going to discuss, the negative effects of mental health, and you'll find it quite interesting. And for those of you who have young kids or grandchildren, I think it's really important to sit down with them. And it's very important that our children are loved in such a way that, we don't want them to be influenced by social media. And I can only imagine that's a difficult task. But it starts early with kids. And if you can provide that for them where they develop self-esteem, that's a good start. That's a good start. Someone needs to invent an algorithm blocker. Good idea. Okay. And I'll be in chat. And thanks for coming. Okay.
Everyone, this is Straight Talk with the Doc, a podcast where you get expert insight on all things mental health, addiction, and treatment related. My name's Haley, and I'm here with addiction medicine specialist Dr. Bott.
Hey Haley, how are you?
I'm doing great. So, in recent years, behavioral addictions have been getting more recognition, with gambling disorder being added to the DSM, and even disorders like internet gaming disorder being recognized. From my understanding, although terms like internet addiction, or more specifically, social media addiction, are not listed in the DSM, there's been more research to suggest that these disorders can have serious and negative effects on people's lives. I think something that's been gaining more attention and that we see getting reported on in the media now is people falling into dangerous social media use that leads them to find conspiracy theories or lose touch with reality in other ways. So I want to get into all of that today, but first I want to define what behavioral addictions are. Dr. Bott, can you help define that term?
First of all, I want to disclaim behavioral addiction is a term that's not officially in the DSM-5. And the DSM-5, for those who are listening who don't know what it is, it's really basically the American Psychiatric Association's diagnostic manual on how we diagnose mental health conditions and addictive disorders. So a behavioral addiction spins off from the understanding of addictive behaviors that happen traditionally and more commonly with substance use disorders, repetitive, maladaptive, just unhealthy relationships with using drugs or alcohol. And similarly, we kind of used the word addiction when we saw that happening with a certain activity that people engaged in. And as you mentioned in the introduction, there are many activities that people are starting to do and starting to engage in that are resulting in them having impairment in their life as a whole. They start to neglect themselves. They start to have social and familial and school or work, dysfunction. And it really happens when somebody engages in an activity or behavior to the point where it's basically consuming them, their thoughts, their urges, and without the activity or with the activity often causes a lot of distress. And ultimately, the engagement in that activity causes a negative consequence for them or others in their lives. So it's becoming a big problem.
So behavioral addictions and substance use disorders, it sounds like they have a lot of similarities with the negative effects. Is that correct?
Yeah. And again, I think when we start getting to the point where either the behavior, regardless if it's using a substance or being on the internet, where that behavior is to a degree where it's negatively affecting you or those around you or those who rely upon you, physically, emotionally, socially, definitely it becomes it's not a positive thing. And I think we relate it together because the initial relationship often is because we're pursuing a reward. And that reward becomes so powerful that it either is the motivating factor to continue behaving a certain way or using a drug or alcohol, but often that reward becomes less over time. That's tolerance. We have to continue doing more and more of it. That it just becomes a vicious cycle. So there's a lot of commonality there.
So why aren't behavioral addictions as recognized?
Like anything, when things aren't formalized, they often aren't recognized. So being that the scientific literature didn't put it down on paper, often it's not accepted in the scientific or medical community. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like anything, when we start to discover things, it's a process of research and experimentation and discovery before it becomes official. So with behavioral addictions, we have started that process already by identifying one, a gambling disorder. And that is an official behavioral addiction that has been identified. And I believe over time, you are going to see more official diagnosis of various behavioral addictions be solidified and recognized in the medical community.
During my research on this topic,
Can you imagine it will be a diagnosis probably in the near future, social media addiction? Because right now they don't. They don't have, any diagnosis for gambling addiction, but they'll break it down at some point to a precise diagnosis, and one of them being social media addiction. It will fall under addiction, but it will branch out to be more specific in order to treat the patient, right? Although addiction is addiction, but each has its own approaches in trying to deal with it, to treat it. But that social media addiction will very well be a diagnosis.
I kept coming across the word compulsion. So I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Is there a difference between a compulsion and an addiction? What is the difference?
I think addiction becomes the global disorder, the global disease, where compulsion is just a component that we see within it. And so we often hear that term, compulsion, often related with obsessions. So obsessions are basically an intense, intrusive, repetitive thought, and a compulsion is the activity or the undoing of those thoughts. And so compulsions would make up often behaviors that are incorporated within an addiction, but in itself is not an addiction.
So getting into internet addiction and internet addiction, I'm using air quotes around the word addiction because believe I'm correct in saying that it's not actually recognized. But how would you define that? What would characteristics of internet addiction be?
Let's split it apart. So addiction being a chronic brain disorder of reward, motivation, related brain circuitry, memory, and when you're using in a manner, either using a substance or a behavior to a degree that it ultimately has negative consequences in your life. These are often hallmarked by the inability to stop doing something that affects your behavior negatively, that you crave it or have urges, that you don't recognize that these things are bad for you, and it causes a lot of emotional ups and downs in your life. So if you transition that or switch it to apply it to any behavior activity, that's really where they become applicable. So when you're talking about internet addiction, so if somebody's use of the internet is so destructive or so detrimental that they can't function healthy in other aspects of their lives. Well, then, if that definition that I just mentioned applies while using the internet, then we would say that they have an internet addiction.
And for somebody in your field, is this common? Like, is this something that is seen or people talk about and experience, having detrimental effects from internet use?
I think what we see is that intertwined with the other behaviors that they're using the internet for. So often we will see people who have a gambling addiction, but they're accessing that gambling site through the internet, or pornography addiction, and they're accessing it through the internet, or very shopping. So various things that they're using the internet for, and social media. Social media is a big one that we see people being so consumed with, and it's almost it's an unrealistic thing. And especially, again, I have to put this in context that when we're talking about unrealistic and detrimental, we're not talking about the casual user of internet or social media, or somebody who makes one simple sports bet using the internet. No, we're talking about people who are using this in a constant battle with themselves, with others, with isolation, with negative consequences to their mental health, and it becomes a serious problem. So even though we're speaking about it, we're talking about things that are causing extreme consequences, and as a result of extreme behaviors.
When I was doing research on this, I saw that social media interactions actually generate dopamine in the brain.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think we hear the word dopamine, which is a neurochemical that is, thrown out a lot when we talk about addiction. And people, they hear dopamine, but what is really dopamine? It's a chemical. It's a chemical associated with us feeling good. And when we do something that makes us feel happy, it's often because dopamine has been activated and it's going up, and often it feels rewarding when we get pleasure from something. And so if something, an activity or a drug, increases dopamine and creates a certain pleasurable effect, it's rewarding for us, and it motivates us to do it again. And that's where you can see that cycle starts to develop. And so
And even, I mean, he's saying, the internet isn't all bad, but when you break it down to social media, that dopamine effect, okay? Like before the internet, if you were having a bad day, how many of you would say, you know what, I'm going shopping, I need to buy something? That gave you that burst of dopamine, but it was temporary. Eventually you'd be back to feeling lousy or whatever, and going back out shopping again the next day, because it's that burst of dopamine. And that's what you're seeing on the internet, that even with bad behaviors, it's giving that burst of dopamine. It's an escape for people, but even with bad behaviors, you're getting rewarded. That being it, views, increased interactions with other people, and you might look at a particular live stream and say, my God, this is horrible, but it's hitting the dopamine centers of the brain. In the algorithms are set up as a reward system. The only time the algorithms will punish you, okay, is, and we'll briefly talk about that too, is those who are creators who want to be quote unquote successful, okay? And if you're not on every day uploading 2 to 3 videos a day, and you take one day off out of the 7 days in the week, you are punished. The algorithms take that reward back. So you have to keep going on and on. And you're working 7 days a week, and you're uploading, you're trying to keep up. If I don't make at least 3 videos a day, I'm going to lose my spot in the algorithms for the reward system. It's messed up. It's truly messed up.
a lot of people who have engaged in really negative relationships with any of these things that we mentioned before, using the internet as a vehicle, well, the internet often becomes that that tool to continue that unfortunate destructive behavior. And you mentioned social media, and I don't want to knock social media, but being that so many people are attached to their phones and their computers, and we're no longer separated, it does become a problem when we don't have any sort of barrier between us and everybody. And on those that are impressionable, or those that might have risk factors, having access to constant stimulation of other people's perceived achievements or successes, or it can cause a lot of problem. And so I don't want to get off solely on social media, but I think people can hear that I see it as a problem for those vulnerable individuals.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I want to talk about too. I feel like those vulnerable individuals could be young people. When we were growing up, I didn't constantly have social media in my face, but a lot of kids, really young kids, they have that now. How do you think that could affect their brains in the long term?
Studies and research has shown that, if we are inundated with certain things at a certain age, nature and nurture, and our genetics and epigenetics, that means the environmental influence on our internal construct, can basically unmask certain mental health conditions. And so we talk about young people, and you mentioned this, that they're going through a period of emotional, physical, psychological change. Hormones are flowing and changing, and it's a very vulnerable time if certain insults are if they're exposed to certain insults. And when I use the term insult, I'm talking about anything that can cause undue distress or duress. And so how does social media come into play here is that with the access of cell phones and smartphones and having internet at the touch of our fingertips, and people having access to Facebook and Twitter.
Right here, he's discussing, like he said, there's no barrier between us and social media because of our cell phones, right? There's no barrier. There's no steps. And when I talked last week about deleting off of my cell phone YouTube, so I have to actually go in to my search engine and log into Google, although I usually don't have to log in because I never log out, which I probably should just log out. So that creates another barrier, even though it's a short barrier. But he's discussing that there's no barriers. We literally have the internet in the palms of our hands. And why, barriers are important, especially for younger kids. The internet is just, social media is too accessible.
And Instagram and TikTok. These are forms of entertainment. But when it gets into this competitive one-upmanship of, look at me, it's basically kind of, trying to portray a certain sense of, identity that often becomes unrealistic. And let's just be honest, that when you are a person who's going through biological, neurobiological, and physical changes, the amount of receptor alteration in your brain can be affected, because our brains are built on feedback mechanisms. The amount of exposure to certain things creates a response. So if you do anything in excess that disrupts your brain's balance, it actually will alter the way it was supposed to evolve. So when something becomes so addictive that they engage in it in a way that is unhealthy, it can unmask, unfortunately, illnesses that might not have been might not have been there, or it can create certain types of illnesses due to just the unrealistic expectation or perception that they are perceiving. And I don't want to make this too long-winded, but in the end of the day, people often, want to mimic what they see, and on a young, impressionable mind, so many things are happening there at that time, and trying to keep up with the other person, especially because they're not seeing that might be an artificial reality. It can start to create distorted, idealized things that they can't keep up with them, and it causes a lot of stress, anxiety, and depression. And we're seeing
Absolutely.
that quite a bit in the child and adolescent.
We see that as adults. How many of us have? I never struggled with anxiety until I went on social media. And I'm like, what is it? Why am I feeling this way? I couldn't even identify what I was feeling. And then when I recognized it as anxiety, I attributed it to work when the pandemic started. But then I realized when I was at work, I was fine. And people would say, well, you're just too busy. You don't even have time to get anxious. But then I finally realized that every time I clicked onto social media, depending on where I went, that feeling came. Because I wanted to believe it was work related. No, it was social media. So when he says, you can develop mental health issues, I developed anxiety. I never had it growing up before, otherwise. Never. I mean, I may have felt a situational anxiety that happened very quick, like precipitory anxiety, something like that, before you go to the dentist or something like that. But long term, why is this feeling not going away? I even logged off of social media. Why do I still have it? And I'm completely off from work for the entire day.
Population.
Exactly. I was going to say that's something we've seen in recent years is that young girls who use more social media have a higher risk for suicide.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot because social media becomes a vehicle for, like I said before, look at me. I mean, and also, people want to show off. I mean, people spend so much time focused on themselves, and social media is a platform to just talk about you, and that in itself is very addictive, and people gain a lot of pleasure about hearing about themselves and talking about themselves, and it's very interesting phenomenon. But it's just when young people, they're not able to critically analyze things the way that mature adults can. And so that's where they are most vulnerable because they don't know and they're not able to tease out as well what's right and what's wrong or put much analysis into it. So when somebody might be taking a picture of themselves and puts a little subtitle that says, oh, look at me in the morning, yet they don't know that they might have spent 5 hours trying to take that picture in multiple different ways and change their outfit
Oh my
50
God,
different times.
that's so
And
true.
again, it sets up unrealistic expectations, and then these people try to achieve these things, and it causes really an unrealistic.
Come on, how many pictures have we seen of people taking selfies? Right, just woke up, and you're looking at it like, no. Why don't you really take a picture of just waking up? And they're in the bathroom for hours, with the fresh face, and they get their hair done and, give the sleepy eye kind of look as they're looking into the camera. Just woke up, that's detrimental, especially to a younger person. Why can't I look like that when I just wake up? I have bedhead. How come she doesn't have bedhead? That was interesting. That was worth the
amount of
laugh.
stress. It's also a vehicle for people bullying one another, and that kind of leads to what you had mentioned about suicidal ideation, with this trying to keep up with other people, peer pressure, social idealism, and people often are bullied through these things. And they're constantly checking and constantly looking for affirmation through social media and the internet. And it's becoming devastating. And yeah, we've seen many people actually in psychiatric emergency rooms, adolescents, who have acted out and self-harm due to something that they saw, read, or were told via the internet or social media. And it's very sad.
And also, like you said earlier, they're trying to live up to something and be something that isn't real. It's really not possible. And I've experienced that as well as a woman looking at, like Instagram. Everybody looks perfect, and you have to remind yourself that like that's not real. So it kind of like makes you lose touch with reality. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, we say that, and somebody could ask, Dr. Bott, you and Haley, what are you guys talking about? We're all around it. It's around us all the time. I mean, a magazine is edited, and a billboard is not just posted up there without obviously a lot of marketing and a lot of thought going into it. Similarly, when somebody's putting stuff out there on social media or whatever, they're not going to want to do it in a way that shows them in a bad light. But the fact that we're walking around with phones and it's such the accessibility, it's a constant flooding. And the fact that when initially it might be rewarding and it creates that dopaminergic flood, the fact that it causes you to feel good for a period of time, it's just become so much more reinforcing that you continue to do it over and over and over again in this addictive way that it becomes compulsive. The compulsions lead to this addictive type of behavior that you're not only using it to feel good, but almost you don't know when to stop. And then,
What's interesting too, he doesn't touch upon this. I read this or caught up on this somewhere else, that with like live streams, right? Or FaceTiming someone, Zoom calls, that a person is constantly looking at their own reflection in the camera, right? Because on FaceTime, Zoom calls, a lot of them, you'll see yourself. And the longer that people are looking at themselves, it's like it is body dysmorphia. They start seeing flaws on their face, their neck, their bodies. And it becomes more enhanced because they're looking at themselves so much that it's not a bad flaw, but if you keep looking at something over and over and over, it develops a dysmorphia, which is, a distortion of one's body image. And again, that is extremely harmful to the younger generation, and brings up disorders like eating disorders, or someone who may become addicted to plastic surgery.
not only do you not know when to stop, that you start to neglect certain aspects of your life, but then you continue to do it, that not only are you using it to feel good anymore, you're using it to escape bad feelings. So there's this other side of it. So if I'm depressed or I'm anxious or I'm sad, now I go to internet or I go to social media. I'm looking for a like. I'm looking for somebody to comment on something that I've posted. And
how many people have you heard, and I'm even guilty of it. I'm absolutely guilty of this. Look how many views you got. I'm getting more views than you. Like, we're basing, ourselves acceptance over how many views, how many subscribers, or look how many subscribers you lost, or look how many you gained. You're awesome. That's not realistic. you no longer become your authentic self based on other people over and over, reinforcing that bad behavior that you're not good enough based on likes, based on subscribers. Um, and I too have been guilty of that. I've said it. I've said it to other creators, not to them, but it's like I'm defining them not as their authentic self, but defining them by the number of their views and subscribers in likes. Um, so that was something that I picked up on and do better. I will do better at that because I think we all have participated and um, and probably because it was reinforced to me by hearing it from others or even the algorithms making you believe that the only way you're going to be accepted and be part of that algorithm is based on the number of likes and views or subscribers you obtain in your channel. Black Eagle, I agree. It's only going to get worse. It's bad enough. But the sad thing is, it's going to get worse in the aspect that mental health. It's like someone being angry at someone else on social media, right? And I've always said it's like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. You're the one that's going to suffer due to what it will do to you, to your mental health. And I think we all have to be aware of that. Um, that if your goal is, well, I'm going to hurt somebody else, you're hurting yourself. You're raising your own cortisol levels. You're changing your blood lab values, and it's been scientifically proven that the cortisol levels in a world outside of the internet, social media, we get bursts of cortisol levels that last a few seconds, right? And that's the bad hormone, and it's dangerous. But they find now in social media usage, the cortisol levels are lasting up to 30 minutes. So when you do something and you're angry at somebody else and you're really thinking what your actions are doing are going to hurt that person, no, you're literally hurting yourself.
What if it's not there? How do you feel? So if you're already depressed, sad, and
I s-
anxious, and you're looking
he
for
said-
something and you don't get it, it just adds fuel to the fire. It's just really this vicious cycle develops or continues.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's that validation, that need for validation. So, for people who are struggling with that, who can't really control their internet or social media use, can they actually experience withdrawal symptoms?
I think that's something that we don't talk about, or people don't even recognize. But and we even see it in people who might not suffer from addiction. We just become so habitualized to doing certain things that when we stop doing them, we feel this sense of foreignness. Like, wait a minute, what's going on? And you might not recognize it as withdrawal, but you could feel a certain amount of apathy, a certain amount of anxiety. You could feel like you're missing out on something or missing something, and you might not be able to put your finger on it. But this can even happen to people who are conditioned to any reasonable activity, that they're not doing it in an addictive way. So yes, when somebody is having a behavioral disorder or a behavioral addiction, excuse me, or a substance use addiction, when they stop, there's withdrawals in many different ways, and it usually happens from an emotional and psychological side.
So, earlier you sort of mentioned that, this internet or social media use might trigger or bring out, maybe a mental health disorder that was underlying that may have not necessarily been brought out. So I wanted to ask, could social media addiction just be a symptom of anxiety or depression?
Yeah, when I think I mentioned it when we were talking about, often we'll go to seek out something that's pleasurable. If that's the flip side of the addiction, that it's the negative reinforcement, meaning I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling anxious, and now I'm going to use something that's going to make me feel better. And so if it's a behavioral thing, how many times have we heard, oh, I'm going to go shopping, I'm feeling sad, I'm going to go buy something. And that's an example in a small way. But imagine if that just is a continuous thing. So if we use the internet and the behaviors via the internet or social media to make us feel better, that's just an example of negative reinforcement of social media or internet to continue. So it's used to continue. So yeah, if I have an underlying anxiety or depression and I'm using this to levitate myself or remove myself from that feeling, well, it's only going to be embedded in my memory that this got me out of it. And then when I'm not using it again, I'll further, it'll lead me to use it or explore, or attempt to explore using it in the future. So, and that's how habits and develop. And we see that play out more commonly with substance use disorders. Many people who have depression or anxiety as an underlying thing, it's exacerbated because we use an artificial means to feel better, and we use it through illicit substances or alcohol. And you can do that similarly with a behavior that you can't keep up with, or an action or an activity that you can't keep up with. And if it's done through social media or the internet, and you don't address the underlying problem in itself, it's just setting you up to be unsustainable. So it can unmask, it can mask, but ultimately, if you're not addressing the underlying problem, it's only going to make it worse.
And it can also, like you said, it kind of makes it worse. It can encourage bad behaviors. I saw that higher Instagram use has been associated with a greater tendency towards eating disorders. And I know this is something I read about a while back. It's like there's almost kind of like a group of people, and they kind of encourage each other in really negative ways. Do you also think that social media kind of perpetrates the glamorization of like drug use and alcohol use, kind of like a party lifestyle?
For those people that do it, yeah. I mean, I just said it in the beginning, and I want to repeat it now, is that we're not trying to say that all social media or everything is negative, or the internet's not negative. I mean, we want to make that clear. But yeah, for those that are engaging in it or using it in a negative way, of course, I mean, these things can have undue consequences. And there are groups and people who, aggregate together. And unfortunately, it's like-mindedness. People tend to be attracted to people who are similar to them or have similar, beliefs or similar hobbies or similar tendencies. So when you see people who might engage in bad activities or unhealthy activities, and that group clusters together, you're only increasing that surface area when you have a medium that can incorporate your message getting out to hundreds and thousands and millions of people. So it's a very powerful tool, and if used negatively, unfortunately, not everybody has a good filter or is understanding how to receive those messages. So if you get a group of people who unfortunately are sending out a collective negative message, well, you just have more power, and unfortunately, if it's received by a vulnerable and impressionable person, you're just capturing one more person to increase that power. And that's why we watch out for the younger population here. And this is where we need to set limits. And
So I always say I'm very good at detaching. I'm blessed in that way. But like, I think, Dee Dee, you and I had this conversation once that if you were being talked about in a negative way, right? You would go and watch. And I remember saying to you, how could you do that? You know, doesn't it hurt you or make you feel more vulnerable? Where I just, it's almost like what I don't know or what I don't hear or see won't hurt me, won't affect me. So when I say, your behaviors don't affect me, it's because I don't need to know. I know it's bad. I know it's hurtful. So it's self preservation, right? And some people are very good at that. But then there are some people who just have to watch, like slowing down to watch that car accident. But you're the one in the vehicle that's injured. Hey, heads up, how are you? Yes, observe, don't absorb. I wouldn't know how to do that. That would take an act of God. How can you observe when it's, say, about you, right, and don't absorb it? You know, I wouldn't know where to. And I don't know if it's because that people are empaths, who tend to, they don't tend, they absorb whether it's negative or positive energy around them. I would have no clue on how to separate that. Um, Nowadays, I no longer watch or listen because it compels me to react and defend myself, which gives them power and fuel. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what he was just talking about. And I think there's like 5 more minutes of this.
If I was a parent out there who's listening to this, definitely you want to have that discussion with your teenage, or adolescent child, because without limits to any sort of behaviors, this stuff can become dangerous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good point. And, like you said, it depends on how you use it. Some people use social media to connect with others who have the same interests and hobbies.
Mhm.
They can make friends. I also know for people in the recovery community, that's a really strong place where they connect with each other and they encourage each other in a healthy and positive way. But for those who, kind of have a bad effect from it, what can they do if social media is causing issues in their life? Is there a way for them to seek out help?
Many private organizations, they do have treatments specifically targeted for behavioral addictions, and often called process addictions. And I didn't mention that on the outset, but yeah, there are treatment programs and rehabilitation facilities that actually can treat both a substance use disorder or a behavioral addiction together. And again, even though we haven't really formalized these classifications in any major textbook, the research and the inclination to do so is there. But being that they all fall under the umbrella of addiction, and that whole kind of process of doing an activity or using a certain drug increases a certain, chemical that provides a reward, and that whole cycle tends to mimic one another. They're often treated with the same modality. So you see that treatment often present with where addiction and mental health treatment is provided. So that is a positive. So that is there. And another thing I wanted to mention that you said prior to that about, we're not trying to paint the internet and social media in a negative way. With COVID and the pandemic, I mean, without it, the world wouldn't have been able to survive. I mean, in that sense, it's so positive of how many beneficial things have happened as the result of the internet and our ability to communicate, that way. But obviously, we're trying to show, the harm that can result when it's not used in a healthy way, and just to be able to recognize it. If we see or somebody sees people who continuously are consumed with being on the computer, looking for that affirmation, spending lots of money, constantly thinking about, getting some sort of response, who are starting to neglect their social, family, school, or employment, and behaviors start to change, mood starts to alter. These are signs and symptoms that an internet or behavioral addiction is there, with the internet being that vehicle.
So, in other words, if you say you have young children or grandchildren and you notice a change in their behavior, it's very important to understand that there are signs and symptoms to social media addiction. So, you would address, it's something that you would address nowadays that, hey, how often are you on the internet? Instead of, because most often we'd be like, how was your day? Or I noticed, you have a change in your behavior. And then you might think, are they experimenting with, substances? Are they hanging around with the wrong people at school? But we have to think now, that asking them, and, starting a conversation and trying to figure out, are you on how often are you on social media? Because very well these behaviors are, as we hear, are stemming from social media usage. It's almost over.
Just wanted to mention that again as we come to the end of this podcast episode.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so important too to talk about it, especially for those those high risk groups like those young girls who might be at risk, honestly. So thank you for going over that. We have resources on addictioncenter.com that talk about behavioral addictions and risky social media use if you want to check those out and learn more. There's more episodes of Straight Talk with the Doc on Addiction Center, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, so make sure to check those out. And thank you for tuning in, and we hope to have you next time for another episode. Hi, everyone. This is...
Oh, okay. So what did you think? Wow, right? I chose accredited sites. Common sense lets me know so much rubbish out there. Right. I know it's a lot to absorb, but it's become part of our lives. Social media, the internet. And again, there's good aspects of the internet, absolutely, but there's also not so good. And I can't emphasize more that if you have small children, or if you're visiting your grandchildren, or they're coming over and you're spending time, it's so important, as the moment that they're born, is that you emphasize on creating, them to have a good self-esteem, good self-image of themselves. It's, so they'll grow up and they'll have that core value. And, hopefully not go to Instagram, and say, well, why can't I look at that? And also when they're at that developmental stage where they can process, conversations related to, social media, and be honest with them and open with them. Talk to them about filters. Talk, that's not a morning picture. You don't wake up in the morning looking glamorous. Or do you remember the soap operas, General Hospital, or any of the soap operas where someone would be in bed dying, okay, and they looked absolutely gorgeous? That's not realistic. Or they're dying and they have lipstick on. That's not realistic, and trust me, it's not. I don't think you ever would see a dying person and say, hey, look, they look great. No, that's just not the reality of it. Thankfully, your grandkids have strict rules, but still young. Yeah. That's right, Dee Dee. You worked at Glamour Shots. And that's interesting. Think about even back then, it was very popular. There were stores in the mall, glamour shots, you know. Um, okay. So what I want to do is this is kind of wild because we often hear about a lot of creators, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, whatever, who want to make it big on YouTube, right? Who want to be successful, that it's their job. You know, a lot of people have left, literally have left their careers because they're going to now make YouTube their job, and they're striving to hit the algorithms, okay? And they're going to make lots of money, and they're going to go viral. Even if I can put out one video that goes viral, you know, um I'm striving for that, and they're going to reward me for that. But I want you to listen to this guy. Now, he's a gamer, okay? And he was striving for that, and there is burnout. There is burnout, and the creators out there who have millions of followers, trust me, their mental health is affected. There is no way out of this. The way the algorithms are set up, the reward system, but there's also the punishing system from the algorithms. And he's going to discuss it. So you'll understand why a lot of people quit. They're like, there's no way I can't make, even if I'm successful, I'm burning out. And your mental health is going to be affected even before a lot of people become successful. So I just want you to listen to him, and it's interesting. He talks about the the punishments that YouTube especially will hand out. Where is it?
Social media is wild. Hootsuite helps brands survive and thrive.
Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a video for you that
All right, this channel name, and I'll put his link in the description as well. Okay, it's called Driftor. He's got 1.48 million subscribers. Okay, he's a gamer. In this, let me see this was 2 years ago. Okay, so he's successful. I mean, 1.48 million subscribers. Okay, you would think, I mean, he's thrilled, but he's being very open and honest. And this is about 11 minutes, and then I'll open up the panel.
that is a personal topic commentary that doesn't have that much to do with gaming in particular, though it does relate to YouTube, where obviously you're watching this, and probably every single content creator you follow. I got the idea because this weekend I went to Six Flags over Texas with my wife, Jwo, and Choco. It was a great idea. It was super fun. I think we got like a half off discount because it's kind of off season. The lines were short. We hit every single major ride in the park, and it was a blast. However, the night before and occasionally on the day of, I felt extremely guilty just for being there. I felt like I was doing something wrong and that a punishment was incoming because I took a day off. And I just...
He's talking about taking a day off from you as a creator on YouTube. And the title of his video, I apologize, I should have mentioned it. The YouTube algorithm is toxic. Parentheses, philosophy of social media.
Sat there occasionally the night before and the day of, it just felt like the whole world would crumble around me. And I don't want you guys to think I had a miserable time, because Six Flags is very fun, but occasionally these thoughts would come in and kind of hit me. So of course, while I was there, I had to make monetized Twitter videos in order to justify everything, and I did. And the question that I want to ask you is, why is it that the first full day off that I've taken in months made me feel that guilty? And the answer is because I have adapted my mind, my body, my lifestyle, and everything to please social media algorithms. Algorithms are toxic to humans, at least
mentally toxic. And every single social media website now is run primarily by an algorithm. You've got YouTube algorithm, Facebook algorithm, Twitter, Instagram. Pretty much everything that you look at has algorithmic pushes. For those of you that don't know, algorithms are lines of code that are designed to solve problems somewhere between 2 lines and 1,000 lines, or 10,000 depending on the website. And in the case of social media, the problem they're solving is whether it should or should not push out your content. You've probably heard a lot of creators complain about these over time, including me. I mean, my wife got shadow banned on Instagram, and somehow I think I'm shadow banned on YouTube now too. When I search Modern Warfare, my own videos don't even come up, which is kind of scary. But the point is that the algorithms work hard in the social media space, especially someplace monetized like this, to try to determine what is going to be popular, what people are going to watch the longest, and what fits advertisers the best. The goal, ideally, is that as soon as you turn on your phone, it shows you exactly what you want to see. You watch it for a long time, you enjoy it, and the advertisements fit and they blend in really well, and they're interesting, and that some percentage of you click on them, right? And that's how it's supposed to work. It generally kind of does, but there are problems with it on the human side, on the creator side. One of those is that every platform has its own rules, its own guidelines, its own little algorithmic oddities. For instance, I can post almost anything and monetize it at least a little bit on YouTube, but Twitter is super strict and it'll demonetize me for saying the word darn it. Instagram generally shows your followers 1 post per day. Posting multiple times per day doesn't often go well. YouTube can do 3, Twitter can do 12. There are certain times of day that do better than others, and those times of day are ultimately your deadlines. And oftentimes certain hashtags, keywords, search terms just get more promotion. You've got thumbnail psychology to consider, and the algorithm even scans your thumbnail to see what's going on there. And trends are super important. Not just trends in like gaming and what game is going to be really popping, but trends in what the algorithm is deciding to promote. Does it like total views? Does it like watch time, click-through rates, certain words? A lot of stuff is going on here. And all of this, again, is designed to keep users engaged and click ads, and the longer they stay on the platform, the better. But that leads to the question of, can content creators keep up with a truly insatiable appetite for more from their audience? So if you look at this from like economic theory, human beings are creatures of unlimited want. We always want more, and in this case, we want more views, more content, more good stuff, binge watching, yada, yada. And as a content creator, the more you can deliver to this crowd, the more you can keep them watching, the better you can do, the more successful you will be, right? I don't think anybody is unaware of that. But the answer is basically no, because every iteration of a social media algorithm becomes increasingly more engaging and increasingly more pressing on its users' psychology. So as a user, you'll use it longer and longer and expect more and more, and your content creators have to make more and more and higher and higher quality. And no human being can create enough content to keep up with this demand and maintain a healthy lifestyle. As a creator, you are always pushed to make more content, better content, faster content, cheaper content, trending content every single day, which is the most common time that people post, or amount of time, or multiple times per day. And this is just in no way sustainable, not just from like a work-life balance, but also for your mentality.
The process of putting together a film
algorithms are
is really
dragging me
interesting
in.
because it starts off in a really
Which is where we're going to move.
And speaking of commercials, you know, there's that option for YouTube Premium where you don't have to watch commercials. And I'm pretty sure they do that. They want you to purchase that because it provides more engagement for the user. So if you have a commercial on, right, you're more apt to click pause, get up, get something to eat, right, or call somebody. But the longer they keep you engaged, commercial free, the more they get you.
For the rest of this commentary, that's the important part of it. If you do well at your job and you learn all these things, you probably will have learned more than I have, to be honest. I'm in the dark around a lot of them, but you'll start deciding your content to appeal to the algorithm without even knowing it. What you're going to start doing is you're going to start trying to replicate things that are successful. Well, this thing is successful, let's try to make 3 more. That thing is successful, let's try to make more. Let's try to find this trend and push this, and this is going to be really popular. And what you as a creator is doing, instead of thinking about the things you create, you are being conditioned by an algorithm that rewards you for creating things that the algorithm delivers ads on that satisfies the needs of the viewer. It's kind of crazy. So, you have your viewer psychology, and as long as they're satisfied in watching, the algorithm notices that and it rewards that content. And then it goes to the creator, which rewards that kind of content from the creator. And you end up like the audience moves, then the algorithms move, then you move, and it just goes around and around and around. And it's hyper competitive too. And in my opinion, human beings really aren't made to work this way. We burn out, we struggle, we falter over time. And one of the biggest problems is that there are no off days. Every single minute of every single day is a time where you could be making money doing videos or doing something. Every day is an opportunity to just make an absolute banger of a video, to get a bunch of subscribers, to do a thing. So in our quest for success, what we end up doing is just pushing ourselves to do more, faster, no break, every single day. And most content creators that I know work 365, 7 days a week. The problem herein then is if you do this for years, like I have, you will eventually totally forget what off work actually means. Over time, your brain, not just consciously, but also subconsciously, gets geared toward constantly working, constantly creating, constantly filming, no breaks. And as soon as a video is done, as soon as this video is done, I have 3 others I have to work on and Twitter content that I have to plan around trends. So anytime you take off is time that you're punished financially or algorithmically. So most of you probably work 5 days a week, kind of 9 to 5 job, or you're a student or whatever. But imagine being punished for taking both days off on the weekend by like being fined money effectively. Or if not just money, then you could be punished for, if you took a day off, it's going to show the video to less subscribers the next day, or it's going to push you toward the shadow ban zone, or your ad rates are going to go.
Okay, so that's interesting. Less subscribers. So they somehow, we see, our subscriber counts go down, our subscriber counts go up. So what I've learned, and I looked into this as well, is that if you're not making enough videos or putting out enough content, you're punished. You're punished. So, you've somehow made the algorithm even a little bit, and it's recognized you, right? It's collected your data. It knows what you do, how many videos you're making. I've been going live more often because I got sucked into purchasing, StreamYards Unlimited. So since I've been going live, and other people may disagree, whatever, but this started happening a couple of weeks ago as my subscriber count started going down if I took 1 or 2 days off. And then when I started going live again, a couple of days later, my subscriber count started going up. It's creepy because it's almost like it's YouTube bots, that their bots are they subscribing to me to get me, wow, my channel's growing. It's very creepy.
Down, or your interactions, or something that is negative to you just for taking a day to breathe. So if I take 1 day off, maybe even just 1 per year, I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot, even though mentally, I know that and I can work past that. And I do take days off. I don't post every day anymore. But that internal feeling in my heart is there. It makes me nervous. It makes me wonder what kind of algorithmic punishment will be coming my way for this. I worry what I could have done today instead, what I should have done, what other people would be doing. And I do get that this kind of attitude can apply to almost everybody that is self-employed or overworked, and there are some bad workaholics out there, and I get that. The difference is, though, that with social media, it's not necessarily 100% just you chasing your own success. So a self-employed person, they think, the more they work, the more they make. Something like that's sort of toxic in its own right, but they're being guided by market factors. What we're being guided by here is an algorithm that is designed to please human beings. We are here to pump endorphins into kids in the gaming space, and that's kind of it. So you're always chasing this, which is effectively chasing a human being's unlimited desire. For those of you that took Economy 101, you're probably familiar with that. And no person is infinite. Not one single person on this planet is infinite or perfect or forever. And there are consequences for trying to achieve this type of behavior or success. And I can't even blame the businesses for it. Like, oh, you can say YouTube's evil and Facebook and Instagram and these people, they're just like terrible and trying to take over the world. But no business is realistically going to design something that's worse or less engaging. Personally, if I was in charge, I wouldn't. I would be making the same decisions to keep my audience engaged as much as possible. And I especially wouldn't be worried about it where as soon as one person is done, there's another person willing to step in and chase it down. If I were to die tomorrow, there would be 3 people willing to just jump right in and do what I do and take my place without any concern whatsoever. And because of that, the platforms have no need to be concerned over their creators. The problem that probably not even that many of them know about. So despite all the negativity in this video, I don't want you to think like I'm quitting YouTube or I'm giving up or I'm too good for this or that it's a tragedy. My life playing video games is terrible. I can't do it anymore. But rather, it was just something that was on my mind. It took me a little while to realize why I felt so guilty for having fun, why it felt so bad to do something right for me instead of for this channel, and it made me a little bit in perspective and think about myself. And I think that every single content creator that you follow, every streamer, every gamer, every makeup and beauty tutorial person, every toy review person, they're all probably stuck in some phase of this cycle. I'm still stuck in this cycle. I mean, even being aware of it and making this video doesn't help me escape. I'm still there, and most of the people you follow are as well. And at the end of the day, what I hope that you guys get out of this is an understanding of perspective on your own life and what systems you adapt yourself to. Now, not everybody's going to do social media content creation or whatever. We all do all sorts of different things in our life, from academics to construction workers and doctors and poachers and anti-poachers. Those weird examples and everything in between. But ultimately, we work inside of systems and we kind of try to max min these systems to get like optimal gain for ourselves. And you need to be aware of the system that you're in and what it's built for and its maximum capacity and what it's capped at and what it kind of wants you to do and who you're really pleasing and kind of all these levels all the way up so that you know what you're getting into, and also so that you know who you will become. Because the longer you do a thing, the more likely you are to become that thing. Even like a good person who does bad things for long enough will eventually become a bad person, in the same kind of way that a person like me who chases algorithms long enough becomes at least partially subconsciously in tune or a part of this algorithm, which is, it's insane, it's crazy and scary in a different way. So be mindful of what you attach yourself to and what goals you're chasing in a certain system. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something useful. If you
He's so right. You have to be mindful. You have to know what you're getting into before you get into it. And none of us knew. I didn't know when I first came to YouTube. Never heard of an algorithm probably until a year or so later when people started mentioning the algorithm. They're great. They're great. You know, we got to hit the algorithms. We got to hit the algorithms. But we didn't know how it operated to grab us in order to hit that algorithm. So we have to be mindful. We have to, educate other people saying, hey, I think it's really great that you want to be a creator, but just be careful because this is what the algorithms were set up to do. It's nothing you did, it's what the algorithms want you to become. And like he said, if you do something long enough, you become that. If you're going to engage in bad behaviors, and you're searching, competing or not competing, but your aim is to chase the algorithms, you are going to become that because that's the algorithms control you. They take away your authentic self. And if you come in, with bad behavior, it's certainly going to get worse. And if you come in with good behavior, depending on where you go, the platforms that you watch, videos that you watch, you're more apt to absorb that and become that the more you're engaged in it. It's wild. I don't like algorithms. I don't like it. I don't like the design. I can't believe they get away with it. When is enough enough? And how many young people have to be affected? And do we have to get to an epidemic proportion of say younger people engaging in self-harm, as we saw in the opiate epidemic crisis. It took it had to become an epidemic for it to be recognized, and we lost too many lives at that point. I think one life lost was enough. Was enough. If one person self-harms over social media, why is that not enough for them to change? I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't The more I look at this, it's almost like this should be illegal. This should be illegal. So I think, again, it's our what we, dosage ourselves with. It's okay to take a day off. It's okay to take a week off. If you're on it to be successful as a creator, this is what you have to prepare yourself for. You're going to work hard, really hard, and it's going to be constant working. Um, it's YouTube. They have their deadlines like you would at your job, but your job doesn't make you work 7 days a week. Or if you take a day off that you're entitled to, you're going to be punished for it. YouTube algorithms punish you for taking time off. Yeah, Jenny. I was excited to talk about this. I know it's confusing at first, but again, it starts with a discussion. I don't know everything about algorithms. I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but at least it opens up a discussion to bring awareness. So when we hear that word algorithm, we know what it is, what it entails. We know that there's social media addiction. We know that there are signs and symptoms to look out for. Um, if you're getting depressed, or if you already have an underlying depression, even before you came to social media, and it's getting worse, and you're seeing, a doctor for that, it's important that you let them know that you're active on social media. And I don't even know, and I'll have to ask my own doctor the next time, whenever I go there, if that's part of screening for preventative care as well, what your social media usage is. Thanks, Muppets. Yeah, it was very informative. If anyone wants to take a link, just let me know. I can drop the link in if you want to talk about. I want to stay on topic. If you have any experiences or have been affected by this to the point where you recognize it definitely worsened your mental health, or maybe your mental health became better because of the where you go on social media, that you've been able to filter out, you know, um, certain channels, or based on what you watch, whether it's videos, live streams. Florida Gray, I don't have a channel besides no one would watch. That's not true. That's not true. I would watch you. You have talent. Are you kidding? I never knew what an algorithm was until I joined the pain community on Twitter 6 years ago. They are disgusting, and they fudge them with false data that we proved them wrong many, many years ago. Nothing changed. Yeah, Rosie. And, that's another thing why, Lush pulled out, and also why these major companies pulled out of Twitter, especially after Elon Musk took over, because one reason was misinformation that was being put out there. And again, I don't know how they're getting away with this. And I didn't follow after the whistleblower on Facebook. I never followed up on it. I don't know if Facebook changed their platform, if they made it more user friendly, less toxic. Because I'm not on Facebook, so I have no idea um, if they change if they changed their algorithms. I've changed who I watch and sub to at times. Yeah. And again, remember, if you're, thinking about getting YouTube Premium to avoid commercials, all they're doing is they're sucking you in because they want you to become more engaged. Because even like when we watch television, right? When the commercial comes on, we're more apt to get up, get something to eat, and we may not come back. We may get distracted. Um, we may go in the kitchen and find this sink full of dishes and I got to clean this up, or get distracted and say, you know what, let me put a load of dishes in the dishwasher. But if you have a program that's commercial free, you're less apt to get up and get something to eat or wash the dishes. I got so much freedom after I stopped watching The Kitchen Lady. I was just going to say, who's the kitchen lady? Yeah. False data creates incorrect algorithms. I think the algorithms were created to give false data. I think it's the other way around, but I don't know, but that's my perspective. I think the algorithms were created to give false data, like the conspiracies. I'm not on Twitter. I think I set up a Twitter account a couple of years ago. I'm not even on it. I'm not even on it. Instagram, I went on it just to because of one of my kids being on it. Um, because he enjoys taking pictures and he's really good at photography. I didn't even know Instagram has. I didn't even know you could make videos on Instagram. Twitter, someone mentioned video live streams, or I could be thinking of something else. So it's very competitive. It's very competitive, between Twitter and then social media, Facebook, and what probably there are people who are subscribed to every single Snapchat, to every single social media platform. Isn't there something called Twitch out there, D Live, and it's all based on reward systems. I mute commercials on YouTube and TV. They annoy me. Best times I had with my kids was when I couldn't afford TV, internet. We read more, did more art, take more walks. Took a couple of weeks, but after a while we didn't miss it. Yeah, and I've done this before. I did this, maybe it was almost 3 years ago, where I put a challenge out there for everyone to put their cell phones down, to go out, take a walk, with no cell phones. And a few people took the challenge. And I did too. I actually went to work a few times without my cell phone, as long as I knew like my family had, a way to reach me at work, obviously. And I think a lot of people were nervous because, well, what if my kid is trying to call me? So and I think it was Safe Robbie in it, but Eric G, who used to be on YouTube, participated in it as well. So everyone shut their notifications off and just kept their text and phone on. And I remember Eric G excited because he said he actually read a book. He said, otherwise I wouldn't have. He read a book. And we were like, wow, like that's amazing. And it was because he said, I would have never otherwise read a book. And I didn't seem to have a problem not having my phone with me. Um, but I'm trying to remember, I went for walks. I didn't change anything. I kept my activity the same, but I would go to work and purposely leave my cell phone at home. And obviously, I'm sure with companies, they have found that some companies actually I work for a company that made us put our cell phones in a drawer in our office. Um, but if you were caught with being on the internet on your cell phone, uh, you were written up or something like that. We were the same when we didn't have a car. We caught the train and went on picnics and camping. Yeah, look at all the dating apps. Have you been on them, Black Eagle? Nowadays, parents can log in and watch their kids in class. Yeah, the helicopter moms, right? Why do you think do you why are parents able to watch their kids in class? Is it because they don't trust the adults, or I'm trying to figure out what's the purpose of watching your kids in a classroom? What do you think? Uh, I don't know because whatever I'm thinking, I can't stop what's going to happen from happening, especially the violence out there. Um, I would think that would bring me more anxiety, always having to check in my kid's classroom, and I would hope that you would trust the teachers that, God forbid, if something were to happen, that they would do the right thing. But watching it from your phone and you're miles and miles away, and something were to happen, what could you possibly do? I don't think they should look into classes. Yeah, no dating apps for you. I saw your video, Black Eagle, on the lobsters. You all sold out. All sold out. How fast did those lobsters sell? Hey, Lee, your kids would panic if they can't reach me. I know it because it happened. Yeah. Yeah. Like one of my kids, my daughter, if I don't pick up, she blows up my phone. And then if I'm busy at home or in the shower and she finally gets a hold of me, why didn't you pick up your phone? Why didn't you pick up your phone? Why aren't you picking up your phone? I'm like, oh my God. Do you remember? I remember growing up, if you called your friend's house, we didn't even have answering machines at one point. It rang and rang, and you're like, all right, I'll try later. Wasn't a big deal. My daughter got the phone watch, a kids limited one, which helped her helicoptering to the point she's lost the kids twice this year. Black Eagle can barely walk today. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, was the weather at least warm yesterday? It was gorgeous. It was gorgeous yesterday. I went to Walden Pond with a friend. Hank came with us, our dog. It was absolute, and I knew it was going to be the last good day. November's been kind to us, and now it's cold. 1 hour, 900 pounds. Wow. So when you say you have to get here early, how early is early to grab some fresh lobsters? Thanks, Denise. Yeah, I just put up a couple. It was nice. It was, we didn't plan it. We just happened to be driving by, and we stopped to there's a path there. It's not too long that goes to Henry Thoreau's once waterside hut where he would write his poetry, and it's just as you see in the picture, it's just a pile of rocks. But that's where it used to be. And it's beautiful. I wish we went there probably a couple of weeks ago when the foliage was at its peak, but it's still beautiful, very beautiful. And when I was younger, I used to swim there. There's a little beach there. It's not too big, but it's a beautiful place. 9 a.m. sold out in 1 hour. And how often do you sell that? How often is it done? Like every weekend? That's a lot of lobster. Did you take some home? I don't like I'm not a big seafood fan. Like I would never go to a restaurant and order lobster. Yeah, how much is lobster there? Right out of the water, right out of the ocean. $6 per pound. Is that good? Is that a bargain? I take it it's not, because I see someone say, wow. Someone says $6 a pound. No, you get sick of lobster. That's like when I was younger, I worked at Howard Johnson's right on the highway, and it was a popular truck stop. And I was still in high school. Was I still in high school? Yeah, I think I was a senior. And I worked the fountain and scooped ice cream the entire shift, made ice cream sundaes, and it was so busy. It was such a busy restaurant, and I was so sick of ice cream. I think I went without eating ice cream for at least 5 years. I couldn't even look at this stuff, and I didn't even eat it a lot. It was just working around it and scooping it all the time. Denise, I remember Howard Johnson's. Yeah, do you ever go into a store and you see that rack of those books about your town? I forget what they're called. They're like little history books of the town you grew up in. They have one on Howard Johnson's. You make a killer lobster mac and cheese. $6 is wicked cheap. So do you do this every Saturday? So if I drive up there and surprise you, be like, hey, you loser, give me a lobster. Howard Johnson's, I made good money there. I made bank for a 16-year-old. Oh my God, that's $12 per kilo. No way. Last time I brought lobster was $60 AUD kilo, like $90 US. Rosie Mr. Seafood since moving. Your grandfather owned a fish market, so my ma knew good seafood. Where was the fish market? What town was it in? $6 a pound is very cheap. No, we won't do it again till Christmas. Okay. Where was I that what store was I at now where they're selling seafood? If it was a chain store, I forget. It'll come to me later. Okay. All right. Well, if no one wants to come up, I'm going to end the well, no, it's a pop quiz. Get your pencils out. Ready? Oh, my bullhorn is upstairs. Oh shoot. Oh well. Um, I hope I didn't confuse everybody. I did my best with the algorithms. Um, but again, I don't know how social media gets away with this. It seems so it is wrong. It is wrong. And I think we can all attest to, what we've seen on social media, um, what paths people can go down. We've seen people who've come in and they seem fine, and now they're like, "What the hell happened to you?" And it's also wrong, And these platforms are, misleading, misguiding in the West End. Oh, okay, Rosie. Yeah, the day you went to the Italian feast about my grandfather's. That's right. Now I remember. I just looked up Sydney rock lobster to order for Christmas, 175 Australian for 90 grams. I have no idea how much is 90 grams? She's got the metric system going here. No lobster here this Christmas. Let me just write down the formula for 90 grams. Is that close to a pound or? Black Eagle used to do the Italian festival in Boston. That's awesome. We had a good time. The kids and I went over the summer. It was fun. Bummer, no bullhorn. It's upstairs. I should have brought it down. 2 pounds, 1 kilo. Okay. Well, I was off considering it's metric. I use the metric system at work and I love it. I wish our whole country went metric because it's precise. It's an exact. Where we go by pounds, inches. I love using centimeters because it's exact. There's no room for margin of errors, none, and it's so important. I know my state we try to go metric. I think in the maybe late 70s, early 80s, maybe it was the 70s, and I remember the highways. Um, they put up metric signs for distances and it was a mess, an absolute mess. I don't even think it lasted 3 days. I don't think it lasted 3 days. It was like panic. We do ship row either 6 or 12. Yeah, metric is definitely better. I'm just surprised our country never went metric. Most countries are metric, not us. Yeah, Denise, do you remember that? It was a mess. I remember one day the highway signs being there, everything in distance was metric, and within a few days, they were gone. They were gone. There was outrage. Hmm. All right, everyone. Listen, thank you, everyone, for coming. Be safe out there. Watch out for those algorithms. Hopefully you'll take away something tonight that's beneficial for your own mental health, your own safety. You'll be more mindful. What you'll be more mindful. And what I've taken away from this, the first thing is being aware with people. If you notice someone more depressed or more depressed, having anxiety, um, you know, um, thoughts of self harm, is to definitely um, keep social media in mind. And I'm definitely going to ask my doctor the next time I see him if that's part of an intake, an assessment when you go to your doctors. Um, you know, like with kids, do you wear your seatbelt? Do you, the kid, all these, um, are there any weapons in the home? Everything is safety, preventative. And they hopefully will have, social media usage. I think it's that important and that detrimental these days that it is affecting people, and it needs to be addressed. Thanks, Voices. Thanks for being here. Everyone, thanks for being here. Thanks, Meltapoo. And Todd, if you're here, which I know you're here, thank you. I love you. All right, everyone. Have a great night. I'm off to bed and I got a early day tomorrow. I should be going back to work soon. I have a lot of catching up to do with like in services that I've missed. So hopefully that will be soon, at least by Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to going back to work. I think it will help. Just a mom. Good night. Everyone, good night. Yeah, parents need to monitor their kids' time online. Absolutely. All right. Be safe, everyone. Thank you again. Good night.